So, costume change. What happened was we had some technical difficulties, and we've had to meet at another day to finish off the end of this video.
Yes, we could have worn the same clothing, but then it's darker outside, and then I'd have to do laundry, so I didn't want to. I
didn't either. Let's be real. We were just like, we'll wear what we're wearing. It'll be fine.
I did a pile of laundry the day before. I didn't feel like just washing the clothes I had on. It is what it is. Alright, so where did we leave off? We were moving on to Dumbledore. So Dumbledore is a hero himself. He took Harry and brought him to the Dursleys, thinking that that was going to be the best thing for him, and probably it was, because we've already discussed the fact that if he had grown up in the wizarding world, he may have ended up like Draco.
Yeah.
He is the only wizard that Voldemort's afraid of.
Yeah, now that's another thing. We know he's a super powerful wizard because as we started to discuss Voldemort, he's very powerful. He'll do whatever he wants. We mentioned drinking the unicorn's blood, no matter how much that curses you or whatever, just so that he can be alive and thrive and have more power. Somebody who's able to corrupt souls that way and even start to take over their bodies and make them their own. It's kind of crazy that he would be afraid, or from what we're told, that he's afraid of a singular wizard.
And it's really hard to say because at this point Dumbledore is very lackadaisy. He's very, he doesn't come off as a powerful wizard, but we already know he is because at the end he tells Harry, I was the one that gave you your father's invisibility cloak. I don't need a cloak to become invisible. Now, I can't imagine that that's an easy thing for wizards to do.
Yeah, and we mentioned that he mentioned that one time before when he was with Harry in the room with the mirror when he first saw it. Then he said, not everybody needs a cloak to be invisible. And he says it outright, like you said at the end, that he just didn't need it and he thought Harry could use it. I mean, for the fact that you would even go through the trouble to make a cloak that could turn you invisible, that alone has to tell you that's not a common skill.
No, I mean, that can't be something that just everybody can do. So the fact that he can do that is very interesting. There's more to come from Dumbledore that we don't know yet.
There's a lot more to come that we don't know and that we can't really talk about yet. But what we do know is that he's very powerful, but in this instance he's not using it presently for his own gain. He's using it to protect the students, protect the school, and we know he has a very good, very respected reputation.
So I think that we can right now say Dumbledore's a hero, more to come.
As the series goes on, we're going to see more about what makes a hero and what makes a villain, and how, just as we said earlier, like your choices are really what's going to do that, and how there's a lot more gray than...
Yeah, certainly nothing's ever black and white. I shouldn't say that. There are some decisions that are black and white, but I feel like there's a lot more gray than a lot of people realize.
Now, what do we think about Dumbledore leaving Harry and Ron and Hermione to face the challenges down in the dungeon?
Okay. So, I think that Dumbledore knew that Harry, at least, was going to possibly make his way down to the dungeon. There's not a lot that goes on in Hogwarts that Dumbledore doesn't know. So he would be, I think, aware that they're doing all this research. They're very interested. They're asking all these questions.
He's watching their movements.
So he was already aware that Harry had found the mirror. He probably had a pretty good idea what was going to happen. Now, he may not have known that Hermione and Ron were going to go.
But I think he sort of probably suspected that as well, or that they were going to be some kind of lookout, or... Like, I feel like he had a pretty good idea, and the entire dungeon seems to have been... and I say dungeon because it's a hidden dungeon under a trapdoor in the third floor on the west. Is it the west wing? Anyways, it's the third floor corridor, the place they've left off limits.
Yes.
And they go down a trapdoor under a dog.
Now it just so happens...
A Cerberus type dog.
Yeah. Now it just so happens that all of these challenges are something that they all learn in first year.
Well, they're all challenges that specifically Harry, Ron, and Hermione together would solve. There are certainly challenges that your average wizard coming across mightn't solve right away.
No.
But there are ones that are suited to their skills. So Hermione and the logic puzzle.
Mm-hmm.
With the potions,
chess.
Ron in the chess, and Ron being so good at chess, and that's his sport because his family's traditionally been good at Quidditch and other things, and wizarding chess is like the number 2 sport in the wizarding world, Quidditch being the top one. So wizarding chess was always like his game. That was the thing he excelled at in his family.
He has his grandfather's chess set.
Yes.
So I think it'll, I do think that there are some possibilities that maybe some
Harry was the
educational...
youngest seeker, and they have the challenge with you had to
The
find the right
flying.
key to get through the door.
Yeah.
It was certainly something that showed how each one of them individually are heroes, but how they work better as a team. How Harry alone isn't the hero. It's them all working together.
Oh, for sure. They are together. I mean, the books are called Harry Potter, but I don't think Harry Potter would be as good without Ron and Hermione. They have this special relationship that really makes them better.
They bring out the best in all of them.
Exactly. They bring out the best in each other. There is one hero that gets barely mentioned.
Yes, but very important because we're down to the final show-off, right?
Yes.
Ron's been injured. He's out of the game. Hermione has had to go backwards instead of forward because there's only enough potion for one person to move forward and there's enough for one person to go backward. And Ron's been injured, so Hermione has to go back and get him. And they're going to go out and get help and get Dumbledore.
So that leaves Harry, and he has to face Voldemort and Professor Quirrell all by himself. But there's a very important hero in play that we never really get to meet, and that is Lily Potter. So we learn that Lily's love creates a protection on Harry because she selflessly sacrificed herself to save Harry's life as a baby, which means that she has protected him so that Quirrell and Voldemort can't touch him.
They can't physically touch him. It hurts them. It's also hard on Harry when it happens, as we see, but it literally caused Quirrell's skin to bubble and boil and like,
burn.
Yeah, and they could not touch him. And that's the main reason why Dumbledore insisted on leaving him with the Dursleys, because that kind of magic is blood magic. So leaving him with kin would further keep that protection in place and keep it active. He was hoping, I think, that the environment itself would have strengthened that spell more because he was hoping it would have been a loving home, but as it turns out, it wasn't exactly what they had hoped for.
Petunia is not particularly loving,
but it did prevent dark wizards from getting near Harry's place.
Well, and true, because Petunia is, as far as Harry knows, his mother's last living relative.
Living relative, yeah.
Because you never ever hear tell of Petunia's parents or any other family.
Yeah, well, we'll learn much more about Harry's family history. But as far as we know right now, the only surviving relatives he has are the Dursleys.
That's true what you said with the blood magic. I mean, obviously, it's his only living relative. It's going to make that stronger. I'm sure that Dudley being a similar age probably didn't hurt. I mean, they would have gone to the same grades. He would have been
protected all the time. Because they were very close in age. They were always next to each other. He talked about getting bullied by Dudley and his friends at school. Certainly Dudley never left him alone for very much time.
Technically, I think that even though they are kind of little villainy, they're kind of their own little heroes. Gray area.
Yeah, it was a very bad situation, and certainly nobody likes that Harry was left in that situation.
No.
As a side point, I kind of feel like once he's in the wizarding world, I'm not sure why somebody else didn't take him in and why it's necessary for him to keep going back. Seems as how, it's already out in the open, they already know he's there, he's already being attacked. But we'll get into that more later, too.
There's a battle. It's not an all-out battle yet. Harry doesn't know much magic. Although I was kind of surprised that Quirrell didn't really send more spells his way, other than binding him so that he couldn't move. He chose to like try and choke him, right? Instead of...
At the end he did, yeah. But I don't think he really wanted to. I think that was mostly spurred on by Voldemort. As we've seen, there were moments, brief moments, where Quirrell would try to resist Voldemort. And even though he ultimately did something wrong and thought he could control the power and take it for himself, he didn't really want to be a villain.
Mm-hmm.
And he didn't really want to kill children.
Mm-hmm. So my theory on that is that when Voldemort is in control, Voldemort doesn't have his wand yet. So he can't perform magic. So he's dependent on Professor Quirrell.
Yes, to do those things for him.
Mm-hmm.
And to be his eyes and ears around the school.
And so when, Professor Quirrell is refusing, I guess, to attack Harry with magic, or they're having some sort of internal struggle, the only thing he can really do is attack physically.
Yeah, and he can force Quirrell to do that, as we've seen. But it was, I think, in Quirrell's own way, a small protest that he only bound him and didn't do something worse.
All's well that ends well.
Well, not so much for Quirrell, though, because, spoiler alert...
He kind of dies. Because remember at this point that Quirrell was the one, technically, that drank the unicorn's blood.
He was,
so he's
yes.
cursed. He has that half-life. Once he's no longer sharing his body with another soul or another entity, he just basically turns to dust and disappears. So Harry wakes up and he's in the hospital with Madame Pomfrey in the hospital, surrounded by candy. Which is a great way to wake up, I guess. You're surrounded by candy and chocolate. I don't know any hospital that would allow you to eat any of it.
Nobody was supposed to know, of course, that this whole thing had gone down. So naturally, the entire school knew and sent him candies.
I was going to say, obviously, these people have never hung out with a bunch of teenagers. Rumors, they will fly. This is before Facebook.
The official story that Dumbledore tells Harry is, as soon as he left, he realized... that the very place he should have been was back at the school. There was no real good reason for him to be called away, so he knew this must have been going down tonight.
Mm-hmm.
So he ran back in time to try to get to Harry. By the time Ron and Hermione make it back out of the trials, Dumbledore is already there waiting for them.
Mm-hmm.
They don't even have to go get his help. And he passes them and goes straight down and gets to Harry just in time.
Yes.
What I think actually happened there is Dumbledore knew it was a ruse to get him out of the castle. He knew. I think he went thinking that the students needed to have that face-off with Voldemort, specifically Harry. I think he sort of hedged it a bit, and he sort of thought, maybe I should go back.
I mean, my thought on that is he just left... kind of hung outside the boundary of Hogwarts, just like, I guess I'll just play some, like, Wizard Solitaire or, Tic-Tac-Toe.
Well, he did get a call to leave.
But I don't think he went all the way to London. I think that he took that, he realized, I'm going to leave, it's going to bring out the bad guy, and he just left far enough that he wasn't going very far, but enough time to let... whoever was going to be going for the Philosopher's Stone to go for the Philosopher's Stone.
Yeah,
give
to
him
be down there.
Yeah.
And I think maybe he knew that Harry would go after him. I think for sure he knew that. He gave Harry the tools on purpose to know how to use the mirror.
I think Dumbledore in particular has great expectations for Harry, more than Harry realizes.
I do think he expected that there was a dark wizard among them and this was going to flush them out. Mm-hmm. But I don't think he expected it to actually be an incarnation of Voldemort.
No.
But I do think he expected Harry to stand up to this and face it, because people are going to be attacking him his entire life because he is this special boy. Mm-hmm.
So the awarding of the House Cup. Gryffindor at one point, I think, was in the lead for the House Cup.
They were.
And then there was some incidents with some dragons, and some people lost like 150 points.
Yes. And then they couldn't
really come back from that.
No.
So that was a pretty devastating blow to Gryffindor. And they actually were in last place. So Slytherin was in first place. Gryffindor was in last place. And
they were 160 points apart.
There was 160 points in the difference. Harry got to go to the final feast. Madame Pomfrey let him go. but he was kind of aware of the fact that he really cost them the house cup.
Yes. Despite that, his house at least was still happy for him and happy to see him because they knew what had happened with the final battle.
But Dumbledore is fair, and I feel like he could have punished them for, going down and chasing a dark wizard by themselves. But Dumbledore, being Dumbledore, said, you know what? Reward is due. So he gave Ron 50 points for the best game of wizarding chess ever played. He gave Hermione 50 points.
Yes.
For cool logic. And then he gave Harry 60 points. So they're tied at this point with Slytherin for the House Cup. Everybody's excited.
But who's the underdog hero that brings it out from behind?
And Neville I feel Neville is highly underrated.
Yeah.
He doesn't get enough credit, but he was the one who secured the House Cup. He wins 10 points for standing up to his friends.
Yep, because Dumbledore says it takes as much courage as it takes to stand up to a villain. It takes more to stand up to your friends.
Mm-hmm. And then, all the colors change from red to gold.
And then everybody's happy. Well, minus the Slytherins, even Hufflepuff, everybody, and they forgive Harry for losing them the points. And again, they're the heroes again, and Neville especially. Neville is the big hero in that moment at the table for Gryffindor.
And that's a big thing for Neville. I feel like he really, he blushes and he's all, but that's such a good feeling for him. He won points. He'd never won points for Gryffindor before.
And he won the tiebreaker points. He was the one who made sure that they got the cup.
Mm-hmm. So they were tied, and Neville was the one that got that 10 points. And I do think that having Dumbledore give those last 10 points to Neville really was more to show that Neville is not just, I don't feel like he's a side character.
No.
He should be it should be 4 Musketeers.
It should be the 4 Musketeers.
Yeah, it should be 4, not 3. D'Artagnan is upset.
But Neville's still going to have a big part to play throughout the series, and we're going to see that more as time goes on.
Yeah. Neville really grows as a character. All of our characters are really going to grow as the books continue. The books really do a great job of aging with the characters. They get darker.
Yeah.
And this is, I think, the good introductory.
We touched on that, but this is a really good introductory to that. Yeah.
They're keeping in mind that these kids they're 11. This is
and a lot of kids would have been 10 or 11 when they first picked this up.
Exactly. So we're excited to see where this goes. We already know where it goes.
But if you don't, we're excited for you to come with us as we re-explore the books and we sort of get used to them all over again, because there were lots of things we didn't pick up on the first several times we read them, like the mirror.
Like the mirror. Oh God.
I still feel stupid for that one.
Oh God. I went home and I was just like, do you know what that mirror says? Yeah. So I wasn't the only one who was like, really? Let me show you. Let's write it down. I'll show you in a mirror. Yeah. So learning something new every day.
Our next video is going to be our wrap-up. We're not going to go through all the themes and everything again because we've already done that. Mm-hmm. Basically, for the final video, what we'll do is we'll just have a look at the different editions and some of our favorite moments and that sort of thing.
Mm-hmm. For sure. So probably won't be as long as the next ones because I don't know, we'll see. It's always longer when we get talking.
And now that we're done, I would like to do the Twitter wrap-up before we get into that for the Heroes and Villains section.
Mm-hmm. So Quirrell says, there is only power and those too weak to seek it. Who has the most power in the Philosopher's Stone?
That's a good question. We did talk about that a little. Quirrell does have quite a bit of power, but not enough to even resist a weak Voldemort.
No. I mean,
Dumbledore has a lot of power, certainly.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I would think that Dumbledore has the most power. I think that Harry has the potential for power, and so does Hermione and Ron?
I think power, in this case, would be what comes in numbers, because it's about how you're surrounded. A lot of Voldemort's followers left him.
That's true.
When he was thought to be dead and gone.
Mm-hmm. They were fair weather friends.
He was at least missing. Mm-hmm. And none of them tried to really find him or seek him out in any way. They either were put into institutions or jailed, and the ones that could make deals and say they were going to reform did, and other people were people who were bewitched and did things against their own will.
Mm-hmm. So I don't know.
The power here really is the friendship, because Dumbledore is respected. And look at all the powerful teachers he's got teaching with him at Hogwarts who want to protect the school. And
that's true.
They even agree to go that extra mile and protect the stone.
Teamwork is the power.
Yeah, they even go the extra mile to try to protect the stone. And I mean, the other teachers don't have to be involved in that.
Mm-hmm. So I agree. I think that it's who's the most powerful in the Philosopher's Stone. I don't think it's a single one person. I think it's when you work together. You create something more powerful and stronger together.
Yeah, absolutely.
Next thing. Is Harry a typical hero? No. Harry is a reluctant hero. He has heroicism thrust upon him, really.
Yeah, he's in a special circumstance. And because of that, he is hyper aware of things going on around him that the other students aren't.
Mm-hmm. He knows that he shouldn't be going down into the dungeon, but he has this, well, if I don't go, then Voldemort comes back and the world is going to end. So if I don't do it, who's going to do it?
Yeah, and he very much has that complex of, I faced him before and lived, so there's, even though I don't remember, there's probably a chance I will again.
Yeah, so I don't think that he outright goes looking to be a hero. I think that he has a natural curiosity.
And he does have an eagerness, though, to stand up and to try to protect. So he does sort of run headlong into things sometimes.
That's true.
But he's not typical in that he thinks about it much beforehand. Yeah.
He's not going to seek glory, which is what I kind of think of as like a typical hero. Like, they're leaving their house with the idea that I'm going to go on an adventure.
Yeah, I'm going on a quest.
Yeah. Although, I think we know a certain hobbit that did that.
Yeah, but Bilbo was very reluctant. He was very reluctant to go on the quest.
That's true.
Frodo did look for adventure, but...
Mm-hmm. So, I mean, I think that he's a bit reluctant. I mean, he's a reluctant hero. I don't think he's a typical hero. I think that a typical hero is more, I feel, less dependent on others. Harry knows that he is not perfect. He doesn't know everything.
And he was ready to face it on his own because he didn't want to put others in danger. But he was all too happy to accept Ron and Hermione's help when they said, you're not going anywhere without us, we're coming too.
Yeah, so I don't think he's a typical hero. He is a hero in his own way. But he doesn't seek the glory of saying I saved everyone or anything like that. He doesn't leave the house thinking, all right, today's the day I'm going to slay the dragon. He's the type of person who goes, I'm going to go check out that cave.
Because that looks suspicious.
And if there's a dragon in there, I guess I'll have to deal with it.
Definitely.
So was there only 2 questions?
The third question,
okay,
as is usual for the Twitter discussion, doesn't just lean towards the next topic like it's been doing. The third question is very much a final review kind of question.
Okay.
So we're going to leave that for then.
Oh, and it's secret for me? I'm not even allowed to know?
You'll look it up on Twitter later.
Yeah, I will.
It'll be fine.
I'll just look it up. I have the internet. It's fine. Yeah. I guess at this point, we solemnly swear we're up to no good. Yeah, no, it's like, should I know these things?